Hello and welcome to the Eventual Knits podcast. I am your host Leah and this is episode 2. Thank you for joining me today. I was really excited about the response and feedback I got. I sort of was kind of doing this and still am doing this just for fun, and it's really exciting that people have watched my podcast. That is super encouraging. Even if it's just a couple people, that's not just my boyfriend and a friend or two. It's really exciting for me. So I took some feedback that I was given, and I will do my best to talk more about the yarns that I'm using and the projects that I'm making instead of getting nervous and rushing through with listing everything off. I also am trying to use my phone this time to record to see if that helps with sound issues. I am a quiet talker by nature, but I feel like I'm trying to talk louder, and I feel like my iPad is just not doing my voice justice, and I feel like my podcast ends up really quiet. So I will do my best to see if iPhone recording helps. Anyone out there who does mobile recording and you have suggestions, please let me know. Today for my tea, I have a delicious lavender chamomile, and I am using it in my mug that I got from Saran Sachar. He is a artist on Instagram who I discovered, I think, as the result of either stuff I saw at a yarn event or something with spinning maybe. He does spinning and he also makes pottery, so I love his mugs. I also saw that other people on other podcasts have used his mugs. They're a little expensive, but they're so amazing, and I don't know, I love this. Look at this little stockinette stitch. I love drinking out of it, and I love handmade pottery. That's all I collect when it comes to my dishes. Yeah, very enjoyable. So let's get started. I also noticed on my show notes, if anyone is interested in all of my show notes, on mobile, for me, it just shows the video and then there is a read more button, but if you were looking really quickly, you might not see, and it looks like I just have the video and not all of the specific notes. So if you went to my eventualknitspodcast.blogspot.com and you thought there wasn't any show notes, look for the little read more and click on it. That is not purposeful, that's just how it shows up on mobile, so good luck with that. I promise I'm putting everything that I can onto my podcast show notes so that you can access any of the information that you would like to. So let's start with what I am wearing. So I am wearing just a drop stitch scarf. This is a pattern that I first knit probably in 2014 or earlier with some, Joanne Fabrics yarn, and the pattern is by Christine Vogel. I think this yarn is a Noro. Back then I wasn't really tracking like the kind of yarns I was using, but I remember like really being in love with this, and it was size 7 needles, probably just the bamboo ones you can get from any box store. But I really like this. I actually knit it, I want to say this one specifically in 2015, and I never blocked it, and I never even sewed in the ends, and just like in December I was like, oh my god, let's do that. When you block things, they turn out so much better. So I blocked it, super soft, thin, but like really comfy and super pretty. And so this is my my beautiful scarf. And I'm also wearing the Psychic Hearts pattern by Spilly Jane on Ravelry. I knit these in 2015 also. The actual pattern calls for these to be solid sections, and I decided that I thought alternating would be really cute. I think I saw someone knit this on Instagram or somewhere like that, and I was super into the idea of the pattern, and they had a like sort of a rainbow theme, And so I went to my local yarn shop. Ooh, I hope I didn't block out my voice too much then just there. Sorry if I did that. I went to my local yarn shop and found, I think, a sock yarn, because these are knit on size 1s. I knit pretty loosely, so when I'm like looking at them now, I'm like, was this on size 1s? Like, looks pretty loose, but it's also because I constantly knit my socks on 00s, so everything looks huge now compared to those tiny needles. And the yarn was actually, I think, a variegated sock yarn. All of this is kind of a little bit itchy wool, and I started knitting it in the variegation thinking like maybe the color changes will be okay and it looks fine, and I didn't like the way they ended up looking, so I undid them and I painstakingly just cut every single, like I had like little strips of each color yarn, and so all of these are knit in a bunch of strips just put together. As you can see, I was not very into weaving in ends back in 2015. I did a lot of knotting because, interestingly, while lots of things bother me texturally and in a tactile way, for some reason making knots in knitting doesn't often bother me unless it's something fine, and so that's how I did. Also, they roll, even though it ends in, well, maybe I did end it in stockinette. At least on this one, it looks like I did not really do a lot of garter, or like this one I think has 3 or 4 rows. This one looks like maybe I did like 1 or 2, and so they roll a little. I've thought about undoing them and redoing them, but I might just make a new pair just because they're so cute. So cute. I don't know what happened here. I assume that was just a weird part of the color change or something. I didn't cut the yarn early enough. Yeah, it happens here too. Anyway, love them. Super fun. I have no idea what the yarn is. Like, I did not understand the importance of keeping track of stuff like that back then. And so a lot has changed in just a few years, really. So that's all I'm wearing for knits. I'm wearing a yoga hoodie that I love from my local yoga place, and I'm wearing one of my school shirts, and I'm wearing a mala bead necklace that I made myself with apatite and onyx and rose quartz, if you're into that. Finished objects. So my mom's birthday was on the 20th, so just this past Sunday, and she asked me to knit her a hat. And she just sent me a picture of, I assume, a hat from Etsy, and asked if I could knit it. And I was like, yeah, I could knit that, and it looked like a hat made for elves. So I literally went to Ravelry and typed in elf hat, and lo and behold, there's a hat on there that is called Elf, and it is a pointy Hershey Kiss shaped hat. And so I went to the yarn store and I sent my mom 4 different colors. She had said like in a green or something, and I am like, okay, you want a plain green or something nicer? And so I found some super awesome yarns by Susan, no, that's the pattern, is Susan Mills Knits, Malabrigo. I found some really awesome Malabrigo, so I sent her a bunch of those, and she said, surprise me. So I picked my favorite, and I knit her this elf hat. So this is Malabrigo yarn Mecca in the 866 Arco Iris. Do you see how gorgeous? How gorgeous. And as you can see, it's like a Hershey Kiss little pointy guy. I thought the pattern was kind of silly, but when I'm wearing it like this, it looks pretty cute. If it's just a beanie, I would absolutely like to wear it. She emphasized how we have small heads, and so I knit the small version, but I think this yarn is advertised as kind of is chunky, but it seems more like a heavy worsted. So it ended up being too small. I was worried it was going to be too small, so that's why I still have it. It is really cute. It just needs to be a little longer. Like, she wants it to cover her ears, and it doesn't even cover mine, but it just sits comfortably on my head. And so that wasn't the only thing I was going to knit her, because she knew that that's what I was doing, and I wanted something to be a little bit of a surprise. So I also decided to knit her these slip stitch mitts. Here. So they are knit in the same yarn. Forgot I need to turn down the brightness. That better? Too dark maybe. Slip stitch mitts. They are based off of the bicolor, that's much better, bicolor fingerless mitts by Terry Morris. So the bicolor fingerless mitts is a pattern that I've had for a really long time, and I have made a few pairs of them with various yarns, but I'm not sure why, and it might even say in the pattern and I just haven't looked, but the bicolor fingerless mitts requires you to knit every row in circular, in the round, but instead of using a slip stitch pattern, it requires you to knit every other stitch and then knit one below. So when you're knitting one below, essentially you are doing a slip stitch, but looser than if you just did a slip stitch on your own. So it's like you're dropping a stitch every row. You're dropping a stitch every row and knitting a stitch over it, kind of thing. And so it just ends up being a little bit of a looser fabric, well, a pretty loose fabric. So it's like soft and puffy, but for me, it looks a little messy. So I started knitting using that pattern, and then I was like, wait a minute, why don't I just do a slip stitch? And so I ended up knitting them through slip stitch. But if you want a looser, more poofy fabric, absolutely you should knit that. And for, I guess, beginners, if you're worried about slip stitch, but I feel like slip stitch is a pretty easy thing to do. So those ones are on size 8 needles, and I use the Malabrigo yarn Mecca and then some random white yarn that I have. So in my knitting like area, in my stash, I have one of those sets of 9 cubes, and they're just open cubes. I'm sure lots of yarn stores have it the same way, and so I have them in a 1 through 9, and the top 6 are like my main yarns, and the bottom 3, 2 of them are just the general sort of big box yarns, things I use for acrylic scarves that I used to sell on Etsy, and my like knitting patterns and books that I have physical copies of. And so in that, in number 7, I have just a bunch of basic like Karen, Simply Soft, and some Red Heart, those sorts of ones, Vanna, any of those. I'm kind of a yarn snob, so I have all of those, and a lot of them don't have any of their original tags because, again, I probably bought them back when I didn't care about anything with keeping track of yarns and where they came from, because yarn didn't matter to me as much. So anyway, I knit those for her. She loved them. She wants me to fix this and give it to her. She didn't realize for a minute that I used the same yarn in the gloves, and then when I did, when she realized it, she was super excited. We were at a Mexican restaurant and the lights were really dim. I don't know, it was really a big deal for them at the time. So I love this yarn, and it's a lot of fun. So I was really excited to knit it. I'm glad she liked it. If she didn't like it, I would just keep it. Like, look at how beautiful this yarn is. It's so pretty. The elf hat is really easy. I mean, you just knit a few rows of ribbing, and then you knit all the way up until the head length is as high as you want it, and then it has very, very consistent decreases. They were not confusing in any way. It's just decreasing a specific number every single time, and the numbers don't change. So really quick, knit it in a night. The gloves probably took like 3 hours. I knit those in an afternoon. And so yeah, that was for my mom's birthday. I'm super happy that my family is getting into me giving them knits for holidays, because that is so much more fun for me than just buying something off of Amazon or like looking for something random out in the world. I'm a millennials baby, I guess. I mean, I was born in the 80s, but I do like the age of Amazon, but I also like doing surprises, and I love knitting things for people. So that's my first finished object. My second finished object is a shawl collared cowl. I'm actually going to jump back for 1 second. The elf hat, the Malabrigo yarn Mecca, is 100% merino hand dyed, so nothing is ever, it's not the same, none of them are the same. So just keep that in mind. They are knit on 8 and 10, 5 and 6 millimeter needles. Okay, back to the shawl collared cowl. That one's such a tongue twister for me. Shawl collared cowl. So my friend Nick, his mom asked me if I could knit her something, and she sent me a picture of the pattern, well, the finished product, and I said I assumed I could knit it. And she crochets, and so does her daughter, but she doesn't knit. So I thought it was really cute that she wanted me to knit her something. So the pattern is the Shawl Collared Cowl by Alana Dacus, and this is what it looks like. Really cute, right? So he printed out everything, or well, she bought and printed it out and gave it to me. She gave me the yarn, which is a Premier Yarn Serenity Chunky in Highland Heather. It's 100% acrylic. I haven't used acrylic in a really long time, and it's actually pretty soft. It's a good reminder that I don't always have to be a yarn snob. I got fibers in my nose. But I mean, so it's nice to know, but also, come on, hand paints, hand dyes. The pattern says that a lot of times people need to size down, and I'm already a pretty loose knitter to begin with, and so you start with US 8s 5 millimeter needles, and you're supposed to go up to US 9s 5.5 millimeter needles, and I think I knit like 2 rows when switching to the 9s, and then after that I decided that I had to work in the 8s because I was super nervous about it being too big. And after reading the comments, there were a lot of comments because I feel like this pattern wasn't extremely clear on what you're supposed to be doing at any given time. It sort of assumes that you know what you're doing all the time, or that you understand what it's getting at. A lot of the patterns that I knit end up telling you a lot of row by row or giving you a chart, and this one gives you kind of vague instructions. So that took me a little while, but here's the finished product. I believe it goes like this. I don't have the buttons for it because Nancy, she doesn't have the buttons yet that she wants, so I did not sew the buttons on. So yeah, for me, it would go over, and then it buttons here. So I think it's pretty cute. Once I figured out what the pattern was asking me to do, it was a pretty straightforward knit, I guess. Like, it is knit with some ribbing and then a lot of garter for the collar itself. It says that the finished measurements should be about 26.5 inches, 67.5 centimeters, and then the width should be 10 inches and 25 centimeters deep at its deepest point. And in both directions, I'm about an inch bigger. So it's really funny because when I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, is this a little too small? But either the model is just really thin and maybe the sample isn't the same size, or I'm just misjudging how big it actually is supposed to be. I'm a pretty small person, and Nancy's a tall person. Like, she's not a big person, she's just tall. And so I was just worried it would look too small on her frame. But I mean, if it's a little bit bigger, then I think it's fine. The other big change I made was for the buttonholes. I redid this a couple times because Nick had brought what he called, or she said like sample buttons. She gave me these buttons to like go off of, so I imagine that's like kind of what she's getting at, like maybe the ovular fin. So with the buttonholes in the way they are in the pattern, they would be way too big, so I just knit with one less stitch either way, so it's smaller. And I mean, these can stretch if she decided she wanted bigger ones anyway, because it's acrylic. So yeah, it was really cute. I've never knit anything like this before. I would say it took me somewhere between like 14 and 16 hours. I didn't really keep track, but Steve and I had a friend staying with us over the weekend, and they were playing games all weekend. We do this thing called Gamer Weekend, and it's once every couple of months, and our friend, who lives about an hour away, stays with us for the weekend, and we dedicate time to just playing video games. I often end up knitting instead, but this was what we called co-op weekend, so they were playing co-op video games, and while they did that, super entertaining for me, so I was just knitting the whole time, and I was able to cruise through it, and I'm always motivated by other people wanting me to knit them things. So that's that shawl collared cowl by Alana Dacus. That's it for everything that I have finished. I mean, I've been cranking these out over the weekend. So now I thought it might be good to catch up on what I'm working on, and also new yarns for upcoming projects. So sorry about all of the crinkling that's about to happen. I have several yarns in paper bags. So first up, what I'm working on. I am updating you on where I am on Steve's socks. These are Ogle Design Fiber Arts, knit on size 1 circular needles. These are highs, I think. Well, maybe not. It's green. I'm not sure. Size 1 circular is something. 9 inches. This is the coloration fingering, and they are on 2.25 mil needles. So I think I didn't put a progress keeper in last time. This is just so I know where the front of the sock is. But I think I was like down here, and then I have knit up to here since then. So I've made a decent amount of progress. These are just plain stockinette. And I'm just using the first sock as sort of a baseline for like how far to knit up, because I think that the length was really good. They were just too wide, and now I think I'm getting a really good width for his socks. This doesn't seem as outrageous as the first one. And again, this is where the ball is going. It's just going to keep getting darker. I love, like, the first sock is mostly yellow. This one is much more speckly. I really, really like it. I'm super excited about that. I'll take this off. I'm getting pretty warm. Oh no, my hair's messy. So that's what I'm working on for that. And then the other sock that I'm working on is my Vanilla Latte socks by Virginia Rose Jeans, if that's how you pronounce it. The yarn is Cannon Hand-Dyed Self-Striping in the colorway Friday I'm in Love. And these are knit on size 00s, 1.25 mil needles. And it's 80% merino, 20% nylon. I believe the Ogle Design Fiberworks is 100% wool. So I always forget that, sorry. As you can see, I really prefer to knit my socks in on 9-inch circulars. I like, otherwise I always get a bar going up the side no matter what I do. And I really like how circular needles feel. I use really tiny needles for my knitting for socks, and so these are just the most comfortable, and I really, really love Chagus. So since our last episode, this is how far I've knit. This is my progress marker. As you hear, this is my like most favorite progress marker ever. Seeing if we can get it to zoom. Well, a little better. So this is a progress marker from Brown Girl Knits. I got it in a contest that I won from Lady Dye Yarns on Instagram. She had posted something about like counting how many snowflakes were in a series of pictures, and everyone who guessed right would get entered into a drawing, and I happened to win, and it was super exciting because I got a lot of things from a lot of people of color on Instagram, and it was really, really cool because I you don't know who you don't know, and so it was nice to get all these little samples from people where I might not have discovered them, at least for a while. And this was before people started having the discussion about the lack of visibility of people of color on Ravelry and Instagram and other places. And so it was really exciting for me to have that found. So the things that I won from there are, I can't show you the picture on Instagram because it's not showing up very well on my iPad for the phone, but the things that I got were a beautiful skein of yarn from Lady Dye Yarns, a pattern I assume that could be used for that yarn from Brooklyn Boy Knits called Frozen Enchantment. I also got that Progress Keeper from Brown Girl Knits. I got a really cute knitting pin from, the Instagram name is Tau713, but the name of their company is Nerdbird Bakery. And then I also got some coffee by Key, which was really good. It was only a sample. I used it already, so I can't show you that anyway, even if I wanted to. But go to my Instagram. It's like the 6th picture. Yeah, the 6th picture on my Instagram. It's really cool. Check all those people out. They're amazing. So that's this Progress Keeper is so cute. I really wish you could see it better, but it's adorable. Just so cute. So that's all I'm working on right now. I have a lot of things in store. I have a lot of things planned, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about those things. Oh, I'm about to have a cat. You will maybe see a cat in a minute. So when we were at the yarn store getting stuff for my mom, we came across this beautiful skein of Wonderland yarns in Mad Hatter. It's sport weight, 344 yards, 4 ounces, 100% superwash merino. It is very Leah, just very me. So pretty. So it was $26, so I was like, hey, well, let's look and see if, I need more skeins to make something. What can I make with this? I typically like to have an idea in mind when I buy expensive yarns. I don't like to just buy a skein of yarn and not have any idea what I'm going to knit with it, because I'm worried that I won't knit with it. And not that it's a waste of money, it's beautiful, but it just makes me feel better looking at yarn and being like, I know what I'm gonna do with you, I just need the time. So we ended up finding a woven scarf, actually, that uses like a light color with this. I believe this would be the warp and this would be the weft. I think that was how it looked on Ravelry. We just found a random scarf looking up Wonderland yarns, and it looked really beautiful. So the contrast yarn that I got is a Nuna. It says Nuna is the Quechuan word for soul or spirit. It's Mirasol yarn. Luxurious extra fine merino wool and mulberry silk blended with bamboo sourced viscose. So it's 40% wool, 40% silk, and 20% viscose. And looks like it's from Peru. It's shade Timber Wolf. And it's a really beautiful, fine, silvery sort of color. So I'm really excited to weave. I do a little bit of weaving. Not a lot. I only started weaving last year, but it's super nice. My main scarf is woven. Yeah, love it. Love this yarn. Cannot wait to use it. Super soft. This is what I do with all my yarns. Rub them on my face. We'll do that. So I'm excited to do that in the coming future. My complaint about weaving is how annoying it is to set up. Oh my God, is it annoying to set up. So, and once you're weaving, I have a 15-inch Cricut loom Steve got me for my birthday in November, and I love weaving, but it's like, man, it hurts your back and it's hard to set up, and it's just really interesting. So I don't know, maybe in the future I'll get one of those stands for it so I can stand and weave. In the meantime, I just bend very uncomfortably over my loom on the floor, usually. So the yarn that Steve got me over Christmas is a skein of this. This is in the DPUC, proud member of the Indie Dyer Collective, in the Salazar colorway. It's 100% superwash merino worsted weight 4-ply. This is, I believe, a pooling yarn, and so I'm really excited to knit something for it. If you can't tell, I'm a Slytherin. So this is perfect. and I cannot wait to knit like a hat or something with it to try pooling. I've never tried pooling yarn. Seems really exciting. The first place I heard of pooling yarn was on the Knit Girls, and at first I was like, you know, I was like, that seems weird, I don't like it. But then as Leslie finished working on the hat that she was working on, I think it was just that I didn't like the blue in the hat so much, not even the pooling itself. And then when she finished it, I was like, you know what, that is pretty cool. And then soon after that, I ran into a bunch of yarns at Stephen B, one of my local yarn stores in Minneapolis, and I thought that looked really cool. And this yarn had like caught my eye a bunch of times, but I never picked it up. And then Steve saw it and thought of me and bought it for me for Christmas. The other yarn he bought me is this Spin Cycle yarns. I don't know, love Spin Cycle. It's super decadent, super, can be pretty spendy. This one is a 200 yard sport weight superwash American wool in Heartseye. Love the name Heartseye. It's so good, so perfect for my life. There is a Purity Ring, the band song, called Heartseye, and it's really, really good in my opinion. We were at Stephen B this weekend, and I picked up the last skein of the other Heartseye. So I mean, they're hand dyed, so they're not the same, but they're both gorgeous. And they're also, he pointed out, companion cube colors. If you've ever played Portal, looks like companion cube. Got the grays and the whites and the pinks. Love them. Super excited. Cannot wait to make something with these. Next, oh my god, I have so many things that I want to be knitting, you guys. So I have a goal this year to knit a sweater. I've never knit a sweater before, and I really want to. Like, it's crazy to me how people like who are just starting out are like, I'm gonna make a sweater, and it's fascinating to me because I'm terrified of making a sweater. I want it to fit. I want it's really intimidating to buy that much yarn at once. God, if I screw up, it's just, I'm like, it's devastating to me to have to rip a lot back. And so it's been a lot of fear, and you know what, I gotta suck it up and do it. And the pattern that I want to knit is Telly Bean Knits worsted sock arms. So I'd been following her and Mustache Yarns for a long time. They are both people who Telly Bean's patterns I use, Stephanie Lotvin, her patterns I use a lot, and then Mustache Yarn I use constantly for socks. I love Mustache's socks. So they teamed up and they developed, Stephanie wrote the worsted sock, or the sock arms pattern, and I was interested, but I was nervous because fingering yarn is just a lot of yarn and effort. And so I was really afraid of it, you know, bought it, I have it, I own it, but I was too afraid to go through with buying the yarn. And then a few months later, lo and behold, she comes out with the worsted sock arm sweater. So I'm super excited about that. I finally decided I'm gonna bite the bullet, I'm gonna buy the yarn, I'm gonna knit that sweater this year. My goal really is to have it done by the end of summer. As a teacher, I have summers off, so it makes sense that I would have the opportunity to really work on it this summer, but I would like to start it before then. And so the yarn that I chose for it is, I got Highland Duo 70% baby alpaca, 30% merino wool and cascade yarns. It's like a deep gray. The colorway, I guess it just says 2325. I don't know if it has an actual name, but it's a dark kind of gray with sort of blue undertones, I feel like, or cool undertones. Really soft. Have to have something that's soft, not super itchy. It has a halo. It's, I don't know if it's, I just learned the difference between plies, and I don't know, more fibers in my nose, if it's a single ply. Maybe it says on here. It does not, but it's soft and it's fuzzy, and that's going to be the body of the sweater. And then the arms, I'm not actually using a Mustache Yarns for. I considered using her Harry Potter colorways, which is just all 4 house colors, but the color changes kind of stressed me out a little bit. I have pretty big arms in terms of like around up until like my wrists get really small. So instead, I really wanted to keep the Harry Potter theme, but I decided to go with Knitted Wit Targi Worsted in the Sneaky Snake colorway. So it's got gray, it's got green. I honestly don't know how it knits up. It's obviously not self-striping, but I'm gonna try it, see how it looks, and I think I'll like it. I think that the greens and the grays look really good, and they will match really well with the grays here. So that's my goal. Gonna knit my sweater. It'll be awesome. And I swear that I saw a knit along for a sweater, and I swear it went till May, and I saw it once, and then when I went to actually like find and join it, I could not find it. I have no idea. I think I made it up in my head, or I found one that was from not this year and assumed it was from this year. So if you know of any sweater knit-alongs that have started this year, please let me know, because I really like joining those kinds of knit-alongs. They make me feel super motivated and supported and good for questions and all that kind of stuff. So I know Stephanie started a sock arms knit-along, I think in like November, but I totally missed it, and also I was way too busy doing my winter knits. Who starts a sweater knit-along right before Christmas? Come on, let's go, Stephanie. So I'm starting this year. Next, Stephanie is having a knit along for mittens, and I believe they are for any of her patterns for mittens, and so I am working on knitting her Fishkins mitt. She just came out with this pattern. It's so freaking adorable. Really excited. She teamed up with Lolo Did It for the colors. So if you look here, there we go. So this is the original pattern. I know it's blurry, but go to Fishkins for Stephanie Lavin. I bought the kit for the top one. She also has other colors. I don't like these ones as much. There was a third kit that Lolo Did It that it looked really intriguing to me, that was more, I think, shades of pink and grays and stuff, but I didn't know how they knit up, and I really like to see what a finished product looks like. So here comes some crinkling. Here's the Fishkins mitt kit from Lolo Did It. I really, since then, have started following Lolo on Instagram because, oh my god, love all of their colorways. So it's knit with these. Super excited. I think you just have to complete at least a glove, maybe by Valentine's Day, sometime in February. And for each mitten you do, you get entered to win prizes or something like that. And it's for any pattern that she has. And so in addition to the Fishkins, my hope is that I will have time, in super optimism here, time to work on her, they're called something hearts, cosmic hearts? My rainbow heart. So I have had my rainbow heart purchased in Ravelry, I guess it doesn't say since when, but I've had it for such a long time. And these are also adorable. Really washed out still. But I saw this pattern like a year or two ago, and I loved it, and I bought yarn for it using like a Cannon Hand Dyes Minis kit. I'll show it next time. It's really cute. The rainbow, it's adorable. And it was one of like my more expensive like purchases. It was the first time I bought a bunch of minis, and they are so cute. And then I bought some yarn to go with it. In this example, I think it's more of a lighter whitish silvery, but at the time she didn't have any of that yarn, so she sent me like a substitute, which is more of a gray. But I'm really excited to knit those, and it would be really awesome if I could get all of those done. The last Stephanie Lavin knit along that I did was the mystery knit along for her Till Death mitts, and I ended up winning a prize for that, and that was just some random cute yarn, and but it was really fun to knit all that. So that is the next thing that I'm hoping to get done in the next month or two. And I think I'm gonna talk about the rest of that yarn next time, for what I plan on knitting soon. I wanted to next move into what I'm listening to. So I've been trying to watch more YouTube podcasts. I, for some reason, just hadn't really thought about it because I have podcasts on Apple. I assumed most people put things in multiple places. And then after myself realizing or seeing how difficult it is to actually get something on YouTube and then also on something else, I started looking into more podcasters on YouTube. So this week, who I've listened to an Amy Florence. She's really interesting to listen to. And then the Sweet Tea No Shade podcast with, I don't remember their names, but Sweet Tea No Shade. They were super entertaining. The more they talked, the more they kept referencing things and weather that I was like, do they live in Minnesota? It sounds like they might live in Minnesota. And then they mentioned a commenter said something about Taylor's Falls, and I was like, okay, well, that's definitely in Minnesota. And then later when they were talking, they mentioned how they were in the Minneapolis Gay Men's Chorus, and I was like, oh my god, I knew you were in Minnesota. We should meet up. You guys sound awesome, super cool. We have really similar tastes in a lot of things. Your humor's hilarious. Oh my god. So you love cats. I really enjoyed their podcast. It was good. I would really recommend checking them out. This week I also listened to the Geeky Girls Knit podcast. For the first time, I listened to Craft, Cook, Read, Repeat. And really the only thing I mean, it was interesting and cool to listen to, and I do like listening to podcasts with multiple people as in addition to just one person sometimes, just because of the conversation things that they can be talking about. And one of them mentioned that their maybe husband or partner was trying vegetarianism, and how she was having difficulty finding recipes that weren't salads or something like that, and it seemed like a super generic comment to me. I've been vegetarian for I can't remember, about 5 years, and for one of those years I was vegan, and like, it's funny to me when someone says, like, she literally said, I'm a chicken and two sides kind of person, or a meat and two sides kind of person. And that sounds so limiting to me. I love cooking, and I like my food to taste good. I do not just eat salads. In fact, I almost never eat salads. Like, when I'm eating greens, I make them into my food, or I make a smoothie. And so I just wanted to like throw it out there. If you are from Craft, Cook, Read, Repeat, and you are interested in hearing recipes that are amazing, please contact me. Leah Via, follow me, because there is no limits to the kind of things you could make with vegetables and beans, legumes, rice, starches, vegetables, fruit, I don't know, anything. It's limitless, so good, delicious, amazing. But I understand like how it can be hard to transition at first. I listened to the Traveling Stitchers podcast. I was really interested in the Yarniacs podcast this week, just because I haven't heard them in so long, it feels like. And also Curious Handmade. I'm always interested in Helen Stewart's podcast. I'm currently listening to the Shiny Beast podcast, where she interviews she's interviewing Carol Feller from StolenStitches.com. So that was really interesting. Carol Feller is like went to school for some engineering, or she's really interested in math but also interested in art, and that's how it makes so much sense then that she's a knitwear designer, which is so not me. I like math, but I don't think I'm that creative in that way. And same thing with art. I'm not super artistic. That's why I like knitting. I like following someone else's pattern and making things. I also thought it might be good to talk about who I'm really interested on Instagram lately. So I've already mentioned Telly Bean Knits and Mustache Yarn. Those are like two of my staples. I also follow Curious Handmade. I love when she reposts finished projects that people have made with her yarns. It's really inspiring. And then people that I recently started following are Lolo Did It, and again, Lolo is the person who teamed up with Telly Bean for this knit along, and gorgeous, super inspiring, amazing yarns. I also have started following, I think it's pronounced Legend Knits. He appears to do a lot of, like, he posts pictures of himself wearing some pretty snazzy knits, and then also like customizes shoes with crochet, I believe, and it's really, really cool, like super creative. I would really recommend checking him out. Very like high-end pictures, I feel like, very model, feels very fashion focused. Love it. And then finally, the newest one that I started following and I'm super enjoying is Subculture Yarn. They started posting a Tech Tuesdays, and I started just scrolling through all of the posts to find Tech Tuesdays. That's where I learned about the different plies in a really like clear, concise post, and so and other things with how you look at how speckles affect a yarn, how different color changes will affect a yarn, those kinds of things that I find super fascinating. And also you get to look at gorgeous yarn. So those are who I'm following on Instagram. And not knitting stuff. Not knitting stuff. I just have a student who, an old student from a couple years ago, just messaging me right now asking for help on English work. Oh, my kids. Perfect for my transition to not knitting stuff. Anyway, I recently won a contest from Little Knits, so it was something I saw on Facebook. You had to share and like the page and leave a comment, and I did, and I happened to win, and I won, what did I win? Oh, I won 2 skeins of, sorry, so my student says, when you hear the word hero, what does it mean to you? I wonder what she's going to say about that. Sorry, back to that. So I won 2 skeins of a Noro, as well as a pattern to knit a, I think it said cowl, but it looks like a scarf with it. And so that's really exciting. It was some really cool, bright Noro yarns, and so I'm excited to knit that. Another thing is I have a person who I went to high school with, and she has been really trying to knit, and she's been really frustrated with it. And so whenever she posts something on Facebook, I respond to it. It's interesting to me when people post things on Facebook like, super frustrated with my hat. I have undid it 4 times, and just talking to their Facebook friends, and no one knits in that Facebook group, you know, or whatever, in who they are friends with, at least that, you know, that she's talking to. And so I'm like, I can help you, maybe, you know, like, what do you need? And as a teacher, I feel like I'm pretty good in that area. And so she was asking me questions about, you know, needles that I use, and about how I knit socks. And so I'm gonna talk in my next episode about my preference for how I knit socks, because apparently it's different from most people's, as well as other techniques. Like, she knit what looks like a garter stitch hat, and she really struggled with it. And so I offered to, you know, maybe we could do like our own little individual yarn meetup, and I can help you with projects, and, you know, we can figure that out, and I can teach you techniques and stuff like that, which I think it feels different than going to a yarn shop where you kind of feel like you're being an obligation to people, or like, I know that people who work at yarn stores are excited to help, but also it can feel kind of stressful for like people to get it right away. One of the few yarn meetup days that I went to a few years ago, a woman was trying to start a shawl, and I believe it was just an increase with kind of one of those loose edgings. I can't remember what they call them, but she was really struggling, and I watched her start over the same like 9 stitches for like an hour before I offered to help her, and I showed her how to do it. And I mean, it took me a few tries too. It was kind of odd how the pattern was written, but like, watching someone struggle for so long and not figuring it out, I really want to provide support while also teaching them how to do it. And so stay tuned to see if, you know, we end up doing that in the future. I don't know where she lives now, and I don't live in my hometown, and I don't think she lives there either anymore. So yeah, keep an eye on that. I told her that if she wants to knit socks, and so I told her I could show her or talk her through how to knit socks, whether they're top down or toe up. As I mentioned, my friend likes to come up every so often and spend the weekend with us for Gamer Weekend. So Gamer Weekend is just a weekend where you just play games, and I knit usually. Occasionally I do play games. Right now I am playing through Stella Glow on the 3DS, but not super consistently. My main hobby at this point is knitting or sleeping. I also play a dance game called In the Groove. It's like, if you've ever heard of Dance Dance Revolution, I know it was like super big in like the late, like 2000s, before the aughts. They, in like, I want to say like, you know, the 2007, 2008 range, you know, mom's playing it on the Wii and stuff like that. But In the Groove is like Dance Dance, but by, is it by Konami, or is they sued by Konami? I can't remember. But anyway, In the Groove was like a kind of a copycat in a different way of DDR, and but I prefer In the Groove to DDR, and the songs were better, and the steps were better, and I happen to own like a full-size arcade cabinet of In the Groove, and I am in a like larger community of ITG players, and sometimes I do participate in competitions and stuff like that. I'm not like super good or anything, like I'm decent but not great, and right now there is a thing called ECFA, which stands for Everyone Can Fantastic Attack, which basically means everyone can learn how to improve their timing on the arrows to get like a higher percentage or better score. And so I'm participating in that. I just started it a couple days ago, even though scores have to be submitted by February 1st, and that's been a lot of fun. It's a really good form of like cardio exercise because I hate running, and this is another good way to move your body. And my last note here says weather and looking for places to try out. I don't know what I meant by that. Oh, I do know what I meant by that now. So my other thing is that Steve and I don't want to live in Minnesota forever. I never wanted to live here. I was super mad that I was born and raised here. I hate winters, even though I love wearing knits. It's too cold. It's too cold here. Too extreme weather. Do not like it. So we've been sort of investigating places that we want to move to. We have considered the coasts. South is probably out, unless we could find specific cities. But if you have suggestions of places we should be visiting, I think we're gonna look at Colorado this summer. You know, Steve is really interested in like this, you know, Seattle, like he likes cloudy, rainy weather, but we know that it is insanely expensive right now as everyone seems to be moving there, that kind of thing. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know so I can visit and see if I want to move there. Are your winters warmer than -degrees Fahrenheit? Are they 20s or aboves? Let me know. Put it in the comments. Send me a message, please. I need to move, please. Yeah, but otherwise that's about it. School-wise, things are going fine. We had Monday off, and the kids came back just fine, not a big deal. And then we don't have school next Friday, but we have professional development and we have conferences next week, so I'll be pretty busy. But otherwise, things seem to be cruising along, that kind of thing. We just did a lip dub video to a Panic at the Disco song, and so I will include the YouTube link if you are interested in checking that out. I think it's adorable, super cute. We really only practiced it like one time before we had the final thing, and I think kids just really didn't know what to expect or how to behave, so I think we did pretty good for not really having a lot of prep and examples. So I don't know, it was cool. Check it out if you want to, if you're interested in middle school kids doing like I mean, it's called a lip dub, but it's not, no one really did any dubbing or lip syncing to it. It was more just like, just a cute like community building video. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. This is more the length than I would have expected of podcasts that I do. And I look forward to seeing you in a week or two. Bye.